Ah, it means we're live. All right. Thank you everyone for joining the January edition, the Forest Park Southeast Neighborhood Association meeting. Run through some ground rules really quickly. If you're online, enter your questions into the chat, and we'll get to those. If you're here live and in person, brave the cold, thank you. Raise your hands if you have any questions. We try to act without any interruptions and as always, behave with common courtesy. Small agenda for today. We'll start out with public comment, dive into the treasurer's report, crime and safety report, followed by ward updates, neighborhood updates, and some events and news across the neighborhood. So before I begin, what that is, all right. Don't know what's happening there. Odd. Does anyone like to take the mic and make any public comments? Introduce themselves? Yeah,
Yeah.
Brian? What's happening there?
I just wanted to shout out Spire for cleaning Shoto.
Shout out to Spire.
Oh.
They got an incentive. They want to change my gas meter and do all a bunch of shit in my front yard. So they came down and plowed it and towed it away and dumped it somewhere.
They actually had a truck they were
Yep.
dumping it into,
Nice.
they hauled it away.
Yeah. Sue handled their business. Whoever Sue is.
Go Sue.
Yeah.
Uh,
From Spire.
Any other public comment, questions? Any public officials who want to make any statements before we move into the agenda? Yeah.
Okay, just checking. All right, does it matter where I stand?
Nope.
Okay, I just want to say thank you for letting me speak real quickly. I want to let you all know my name is Donna Behringer, and I had been an alderman for almost 14 years here in the city of St. Louis. And then I went to Jefferson City and I was a state rep for 8 years. And the reason I bring all of that up is because when I was here in St. Louis, I was on the budget, Ways and Means, for 8 years. So I was used to us never having any money. And then I said, well, I want to go to Jefferson City because they keep doing bad things to us in St. Louis. So I get up there, and then a couple of years later, what happens? But COVID. And then along with COVID came all these ARPA funds and the Build Back Better funds. And so I wasn't on budget up there, but I was on fiscal review, and I kept watching money and watching where it was going, what it was being used for. And I started seeing things that concerned me. So what I did as a state rep is I started trying to find out where some of this money went. And I'll give you an example of, I worked in February 2022, helped pass the legislation that made it so we could now tear down abandoned, not owned, not owner occupied, abandoned and derelict properties across the city of St. Louis, which we have 20,000 of. And in that bill, we put $15 million worth of ARPA fund money. And then the next year, another 15 million was put towards the tear down of the vacant and abandoned buildings in St. Louis. And yet when I inquired last April, where are the torn down vacant buildings? I found out they hadn't spent the money yet. So they sat on 15 and now $30 million for tear downs. And so since I became very, okay, this has to get moving because this is important. And this is also money that can be clawed back. I saw that the city of St. Louis needs to pay better attention to what's happening with the funds that are flowing in and make sure for the taxpayers, we're spending it appropriately and getting it spent down for the reasons we need it spent down so we don't lose it. And that's why that's why I'm running for comptroller, because I've always been the fiscal hawk. And I want to make sure that I take care of the city of St. Louis, and I take an office that's been running for 30 years with one person and upgrade the process and procedures so this doesn't happen. And that's it in a nutshell. So thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment before we jump into the treasurer's report? No? Anyone want to take it away? Lines are.
So, let's see, starting, this is,
Well, it's both December and
oh, it's
January.
December, okay, so, ending cash, so to start the year, we've got $2,158.33. That's including donations from December. We have had some relatively, some solid donations in January, so that will change. Again, you can give me cash, or you can Cash App us, or you can give cash or check to any one of the board members, and we'll get it deposited at Simmons Bank in the account. I'm gonna, the money goes towards the yearly Great Gathering. My mind was blanking for a second. But always willing to take ideas for other things. We do a lot of the neighborhood beautification, the trash pickups, so the funds help keep those things going. Any questions?
I was just curious, in our last meeting, we discussed like the races and all that sort of thing that comes through our neighborhood. And I would be curious if one of our public officials here would be able to find out more information about what money the city gets for those organizations closing down the streets and where that goes. Does the city take a portion of those proceeds that the race participants pay? And could our neighborhood association potentially receive a percentage of that for having to close down our streets and our businesses so that we could have an acting budget that would be able to do something as an organization as opposed to getting a few $100s in donations? So if there's any information out there about who runs these organizations, are they local to St. Louis? Do they donate any of those proceeds to local charities or any organization like that? Because if that's the case, then that'd be great. But could our neighborhood potentially see some of that money?
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
That's a great question.
Oh.
Yeah, so every race is going to be, have a different goal and mission. Some are nonprofit, some are profit, some are promotional. The city just requires a permit fee, so we don't take any money beyond that. I like your idea of asking if these events will make a donation to something in the neighborhood. I think most of the ones that that are engaged, I don't see that as being a huge problem.
I wouldn't either. I mean,
yeah.
they're bringing in a couple $1 million per race if my numbers are correct, if their advertising is correct.
Yeah, that's, I don't
Make a
think
lot of
so.
money.
But
That's what they advertise.
It's
They advertise
interesting.
$80 per participant, that they're gonna get 10,000 racers.
yeah,
Well,
What does the city permit cost?
okay. I help with the downtown St. Patrick's Day Parade and the Hibernian one. And even though they do get a fee for the runners, they have to pay for all the bike, the fencing. And that's like $8,000 for both of those parades. It's unbelievable how expensive that is.
That's 1% of what they bring in if they get 10,000 participants.
They don't charge $80, that I do know.
Hot
But
Chocolate Run does, some of these other runs that.
Right.
run at Forest Park.
But what you might want to try, because it's been done in other places, is to let people buy ads on the actual bike racks. They could put their little, salt and smoke here, and that would be given to the neighborhood. I'm just saying that is a way to make money when you don't have the money. Because I know that's the problem with Dogtown, is that they just break even every year. They don't make any money off of it for the parade, but then it's not a race either. The downtown race makes some money, but they lose it with all the things they bring in. And I only know that because I work on those two parades.
And the last thing, Hi, Alderman Browning here. So specifically the hot chocolate run, something went very wrong with the race that day. There was an issue with closing Forest Park streets, which then drew personnel. And that's another thing that spend the money on is personnel to close the routes and keep the routes secure. They ended up not having people to block the correct parts of the streets in Forest Park Southeast, which led to them closing entire roads rather than partially closing the road. Taylor was supposed to have a lane open so that people could navigate. It would have turned it into a one-way, but there would have been a way for people to go throughout the neighborhood, and that just didn't happen. They didn't end up having enough people to block the routes, and so they ended up taking dumped furniture and blocking people's exits with that. I spoke with the race manager. I told him it was inappropriate to do that. I told him that his staff was inappropriate to a lot of neighbors, which if any of you experienced that, I'm sorry. They were inappropriate with me too. And you know it's a problem when they won't respect, an elected official. So I put them on notice to say like this needs to be cleaned up or this is not going to be allowed anymore. So we're hoping in future years we can make sure that this is all taken care of. Otherwise, yeah, these events won't happen in the neighborhood if they can't abide by the map that they give us. There's also some issue with notification not going out to everyone. So we're going to make sure all of those beats get hit next year. And I do
Asking for a donation to the.
and I do like the idea of asking for a donation to the neighborhood association as well. So I can ask about that.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you.
And the event the week before, there was another race a few weeks before the hot chocolate that was completely disorganized. Even the special events office said, I don't even know if we want to have them back again. But then finally we are like,
Are those organizations local? Are they international? Are they?
that one was local.
Okay.
Yeah, but not the hot chocolate obviously isn't. And they have a professional full-time staff that goes around city to city.
Yeah, I
But we're gonna
participate.
change the route probably next year off of Taylor and put it down Newstead because Taylor, bunch of one-way streets going off of it. So it just is a dumb route to begin with.
I participate. The St. Louis Track Club puts an awesome race on in Tower Grove every year. A marathon relay, a little horseshoe. It's awesome. To keep it within the park, it's great.
Yeah, well, maybe we can get some donations from some of the races.
Thanks for the questions. Yeah, I know the races have been a little bit of a burden to the business and a lot of the people in the area. So
Yeah, I live on the street too. There's lots of residents that aren't very happy when they can't get to work or get to church or do their thing.
totally agree.
I've been doing my block captain role. You gave me the information, so
Yeah.
I'm going to work.
Any other questions around, I guess, races or the treasurer's report? We'll dive into crime and safety updates. Officer Walker, if you have anything you'd like to share?
Hi, everybody. Just quick update. Not a lot going on. Forest Park Southeast did have a robbery that happened back on, let me get my dates right. Put on my computer for you guys. Back on the 17th, and it was basically a couple of folks that were en route to go to an interview when they were approached by two subjects that ended up robbing them for a cell phone and a couple of other personal items. The Detective Bureau is still working on it currently. I don't have any further information to give on that besides one of the subjects was a black male, one of the subjects was a Hispanic male. And it's possibly one of the victims might have recognized the person's voice from in the neighborhood wherever they stay. But once we get more information from that, I will send an update out to Dan. Other than that, it's not, like I said, not a whole lot going on. But if you guys have anything else for me, let me know. But I do have a question. We're in the process of coming up with some dates for the officers to come out of it to host a couple of community events. And I'm thinking about hosting a Coffee with Cop event in Forest Park Southeast neighborhood. So I'm trying to see if you guys know of a location, coffee shop or a business that is willing to host a Coffee with Cop event. During the morning times, anytime from 8 to 10 or whatever hours works for them in the morning. If they can let me know, if you guys can let me know, we can try to get that planned. But if you have any other community events, also let me know so I can try to make sure that we have manpower to cover it. That someone from our department shows up, whether it be myself or another community outreach officer or a sergeant or someone from my district. But other than that, that's basically all I have for you guys. But if anybody have any questions for me, they can put it in the comment section or they can reach out, call me or email me, and I'll follow up with you guys.
LaFinca and Songbird, two options for the Coffee with a Cop.
Yeah, Officer Walker, two suggestions, maybe three. There's La Finca on Manchester, Songbird on the corner of Shoto and Taylor, and then Sweetwater in the Chroma building on Sarah and Shoto and Manchester.
What was that first location again?
First location was La Finca on Manchester, right across from Urban Chestnut.
Okay, I was writing it down. Okay, so whatever works with you guys, I can reach out to those businesses and see which one wants to host, and we can get that put together.
Awesome. Sounds great. Any questions for Officer Walker? No? All right. Thank you, Officer Walker. Did want to share a few resources around crime and safety, ways for yourself to get updates or maps on and alerts on recent crime in the area. So the St. Louis Metro Police Department does have an updated crime map on their website at slmpd.org/mapping. It shows all of the crimes within a given time range and on a map, and then in a table format as well. There's also a WMCRC has a crime map that is updated on a monthly basis, about 1 month retroactive to the current month. It's updated with the crimes across the different neighborhoods that they participate in and oversee. And then there is a resource called Lookout STL. If you put in your address in your email or cell phone, you can get updates based on whenever the police receive a call within a few blocks from your home. It's done by a freelancer, from my knowledge, and I signed up for it a couple of years ago, and it needs some updating, but you'll still get alerts when there's some type of crime in the area. You might not always know what it is because the text kind of cut off sometimes, but maybe it'll be updated at one point. But I thought I'd share some resources because crime is usually a topic of interest to everybody. With that, pass it over to Alderman Browning for any ward updates.
Hello, everybody. Alderman Browning here. So first, I'll start by addressing the snow response. I know that a lot of people have been frustrated by the city's policy of not plowing the side streets. And that is something that we are working on figuring out. Part of the issue is that the city does not have trucks small enough to go down many side streets. But then again, we also know here in Forest Park Southeast, we've got a lot of side streets that are 50 feet wide. So that's not always the excuse. The other excuse they give is they don't want to hit people's parked cars or bury cars in snow. But to that end, they have ordered smaller plows. They're just, every city in the country has ordered them at the same time. And so we are waiting on our shipment the same as everyone else. They should be available for next year. The rest of the response, though, I'm just going to be very honest, was completely inadequate. It was a failure. The streets were not pre-treated, despite there being no rain in the forecast. So that was a major problem. That is what has led to this ice that is now stuck to the roads, unable to get up. I saw a plow actually come down my street recently. We have started to plow the side streets, and when the plow went down it, nothing changed because it's all ice. So that's part of the problem. And then they also started spreading salt recently, but salt doesn't work underneath 20 degrees. So that's not working either right now. But hope is on the way. We've got some warmer temperatures due later this week. And the salt that's been put down, we hope that'll start working soon and start breaking up some of this ice. Similarly, in the alleys, they have been actually salting the alleys as well because there's been an issue with trash collection. But I'll be honest with you all, trash collection, street plowing, it's all the same department, and that department is not only woefully understaffed. We had workers who were doing 12-hour shifts when the storms first happened, and I don't think that's right to put people into 12-hour shift situations. That doesn't produce good work. But it also created a situation where they weren't able to get to everything as much as they needed to, which left a lot of even the primary routes and the secondary routes not properly plowed. So the city, if you don't know, typically in snowstorms, they have primary routes or what they call arterial routes. Those are things like the major streets like Kings Highway or Grand. Then they have secondary routes, things like Shodo or Olive or Euclid in this ward, Manchester. And then they have hill routes. We don't have any in this ward because we're a relatively flat ward, but if you go over to the fourth ward, there's a ton of hill routes. So that's been the typical response. But I think what the city is seeing now is we need to have a response for when we have heavier events like that, especially for the side streets, because what has occurred is just tragic. We have people who are older or mobility challenged who are stuck inside their homes and cannot get out for weeks now, and that's wrong. So this is part of the reason I sponsored and passed the creation of the city's first Department of Transportation, because our 110-year-old approach to streets is not working, and we need to have a department that looks at transportation and all the aspects you get around, that looks at sidewalks the same as they look at streets. When I asked the street director, what is the plan for sidewalks? She said, well, that's not our department. We only do streets. And that's a problem because at the end of the day, if the roads aren't navigable, what's your next best option? It's to walk somewhere. And a lot of the people in our neighborhood walk to work at the hospital or walk to work in different areas. And so we need to have a plan for that too. And to that end, I've been talking with our president of the neighborhood association to try to come up with a plan for how we can make sure our sidewalks are clear in the neighborhood. We understand that not everybody can get out and shovel their sidewalk. Maybe, again, you might have a mobility issue. Maybe you have a bad back, or, if you didn't before shoveling the snow, you do now. So we know that not everyone can get out and do that. What we'd like to do is create a list of people who both need help shoveling their walks and people who are willing to help them. If we can arrange this and figure it out, it might just be as convenient as walking down your block to help a neighbor clear their sidewalk. This will help everyone because people that walk down your sidewalk aren't just your neighbors. It could be the neighbor, a few blocks down who is just walking down the block on their way to work or on their way to get groceries because, as I said, you can't drive on some of these roads. So this is something that we're going to be launching, and we're hoping that people who are able-bodied and maybe young and strong would like to sign up to help. The more people that sign up, the less work it is for everybody. And similarly, if you need help, please let us know, and we'll get you on the list to get someone to come out and help clear your walkway, so that way your mail can get delivered, or your medicine can get delivered, and whatever else you need. Again, apologies for the snow response, even though I'm not personally responsible. We know that we have a lot of room to improve, and we'll be looking at that to make sure that we update everything about that needs to be updated. The other thing I would like to mention tonight is the city is currently going through debate and consideration for how to spend the Rams settlement funds. We received about $300 million in settlement funds from when the Rams left St. Louis. And we had not been in a rush to program that money because we were busy working down the American Rescue Plan Act money that had a deadline on it. Otherwise, we had to give it back to the federal government. You don't want to do that. So we were working on programming all that money. Now that it's all set out, we're turning our attention towards this Rams settlement money. There have been 2 board bills that were introduced. Today, a joint bill that was kind of a combination of those 2 bills was announced. And what we have here now is a bill that I actually haven't been able to read it yet because they haven't provided it to us yet. They had a press conference, but they didn't provide us a bill, so go figure. But what you're looking at here is really trying to divide the funds into a bunch of different needs. So you see 40 million for water infrastructure, 40 million for what we're calling mobility infrastructure, that's streets, sidewalks, making them not just better maintained, but safer for people who are walking or biking. We put in some preferences to make sure some of this money is heading to the places in our city that needs it the most. So there's preference language for North and Southeast City, as well as an entire section that's dedicated to downtown. Sorry, I'm jumping around here a little bit, but an entire section of 74 million that will be devoted to downtown, specifically because downtown was the neighborhood that was hurt most by the Rams leaving. But not just that, downtown has lost $335 million in assessed value in the last 5 years. As the economic engine of our city, because downtown generates all those taxes, it means the rest of us don't have to shoulder the burden for this city. But when downtown loses value like that, it starts to shift that burden outward, which is why it's so important that downtown continue to be strong. In fact, the Central West End recently surpassed downtown in the value, and that's not good. I mean, yay for the Central West End, but that's not good. Downtown should be the breadwinner for this city. So that money will go towards mobility projects. There's 11 million dedicated to the Railway Exchange Building, which is a block, a building that takes up an entire city block. It's a beautiful building, but it's been sitting vacant, needs to be developed so that it's not a big hole in the downtown fabric. Other money will be used to preserve and create more housing, address vacancy downtown, and support the relocation of businesses. There's also a guarantee from Greater St. Louis and private investors to one-to-one match that money that we spend downtown. So that could result in even more money that helps rebuild that neighborhood. Additionally, money was set out for North City, 40 million targeted for North City. Again, infrastructure, addressing vacant housing and preserving existing housing, making sure that they grow back that area as well. If you've gone to North City, you'll see that they've lost a lot of housing recently, just housing that fell vacant. It's been demolished. Some of that money that Ms. Berenger was describing, but it's been a loss of a lot of housing. And what North City needs now is to build back some of that housing because, I think we all know, we all live in this neighborhood. Maybe some of us have vacant homes on our blocks. You know that the effect that a vacant home can have on your block. Now imagine there's 10 vacant homes on your block or just vacant land. That can really lead to a snowballing effect that really brings a neighborhood down. And the good news is all this money, when it's invested, really does come back to the city because a lot of it is aimed towards building our tax base. We can't provide good city services without a good tax base. And so, again, the goal here is to bring back neighborhoods that have been declining and make sure that we are strengthening those areas of the city. I'll be honest with you, I don't expect any of this money to make it to the 9th Ward. I'm personally okay with that. We do have a lot of resources and benefits to this area. Just in Forest Park Southeast, we have a community improvement district that takes care of the main Manchester strip and makes improvements there. But this money, which at the end of the day isn't a lot of money, I know 300 million sounds like a lot to you and me, but it is actually less than a quarter of our city's annual budget. Our annual budget is $1.3 billion. So just contextually looking at this, it's not a ton of money, but if we invest it wisely in the parts of our city that need it most, we should see some return on that. Now, this is, again, something that was unveiled today. So if you're looking at this and you're thinking, I have questions about that, well, don't worry, I do too. So there will be things that we'll be talking about, like I'm very curious about this pilot program for childcare, not something the city currently offers, and I'm wondering, should we be offering that when we can't do a lot of other basic services? Same thing with this post-secondary opportunities. But overall, I think this bill is headed in the right direction, and that is that it's investing in the parts of our city that need it most. So those are the updates I have for you today. Is there any questions? No? Oh, yeah.
About
Any questions at all? Yeah.
a couple questions. One on the snowplow issue, just more curiosity than how it is, and there's no winner, so pick a side. For like some of the smaller streets, how is it just plow to one side and hope you're on the other side sometimes? Or is that part of the plan being thought about? I get it. I don't really have an expectation of the streets being plowed specifically a whole lot, but just, is there a plan for that kind of specifically? And just logistically, I'm curious more than anything. And then the second question is any updates on phase 1 or phase 2?
Okay. I'm not, a street expert either, so I'm not sure exactly what the strategy is. I just think it's clear that the current strategy we had did not work. Typically in the past, St. Louis has not plowed side streets. We all just kind of wait for it to melt. This time we were hit with not one, but then a second storm and some freezing temperatures in between. A day that came and melted a whole bunch of stuff, but then didn't melt it all the way, and then it refroze, and that's the situation we're looking at right now. So yes, it was a bit of a unique situation, but like I said, the lack of pre-treating the streets to me was a major fumble. There was ample opportunity to do that. I spread salt on the sidewalk in front of my house, and the ice came right up when I went to shovel. So to say that it wouldn't have worked, I know is not true. There's also an issue with that our whole city workforce wasn't able to get out and get on the roads immediately, which was another mistake, I think. So there's been a lot of problems with the current response that I think kind of lies with the department itself, and that's something that I think will need to be addressed.
I was more just curious.
Yeah. There's definitely neighborhoods like the Hill comes to mind, where it's like narrow and there's cars parked on both sides, and it would be really difficult to plow those streets. But those people on the Hill are pretty used to that as well. So I don't think people have wild expectations here of like the streets being, completely clean. I just think that people wanted to have some level of ability to travel. And when that was gone, people got in difficult situations pretty quickly. So that's something we need to improve on. As far as the North Point project that you asked about up on Kings Highway, they are just in the financing phase. So right now they're figuring out just how to get the private investment they need to build those buildings. So it's kind of in a holding pattern. In the meantime, they've kept the fence up around the property where they demolished those buildings, and they've been maintaining it. They've been pretty responsive in keeping that maintained. So we're glad to see that. And we will certainly let the community know when we expect to see some movement on that. I certainly want to make sure that if construction starts, we are talking with neighbors and making sure everyone's on the same page and everyone's accommodated.
Did the city sign off on everything? I know there was a hold.
Yeah, so the city signed off on some things. So there's, there's two phases. They pushed one meeting back for the variances. But that should be coming up soon, and we'll find out. But yeah. All right, any other questions?
This has to do with the Rams funds. So if they're going to take the two different bills, kind of mesh them together, are they going to create a new board bill and will it go back to committee so that we can see a new bill and how it's specifically written? That was my question.
So neither bill has made it out of committee yet. So it will come to committee. My understanding is that they've taken one of the bills and made it the combo bill. So I think that's 153 is the one that's going to be the combo bill. I am getting mixed messaging though from the sponsor of the other bill as to whether they're on board with that or not. So I think there's a lot more story to play out here, and tune in on Thursday at I guess 10:30, I think is the time. Thursday at 10:30, we're going to have a HUD's meeting to discuss the bills. Should be very interesting because they, like I said, they announced a compromise bill. But when I say they, I mean the president of the board, the mayor, and 2 alder people. There are 12 others of us. So we'll see what we all think of it. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
Whose responsibility is it to clear the sidewalks? Because I see a lot of, even the businesses, some businesses have left the sidewalks covered with snow or ice. So whose responsibility is it to clear their sidewalks?
A great question. I'm glad you asked. It is the responsibility of the property owner to clear the sidewalk in front of their property. So, if it's a city building, then the city will clear it. But if it is a private business, the business is supposed to clear that. If it is a home, then the homeowner is supposed to clear it. If it is a rental, the landlord is supposed to clear it. So whoever owns and maintains the property, that right now is not, there is no penalty built into the law for that. So if you don't do it, no one's going to come and fine you or anything. But I do wonder if we need to change that because what we've ended up with is a situation where, like I said, people are trapped in their homes, and that's not right. So there needs to be a plan to address sidewalks. Like I said, they're as important as streets, if not more important sometimes. And that system of clearing your own sidewalk works great when everybody is capable and willing and able. But I spent all week last week just trying to get Whole Foods to try to clear off their sidewalk. I know Ron worked on it too, and they were saying it's the building's responsibility, the one that they're renting out of, and the building renter is saying it's the city's responsibility, which is completely untrue. And we finally got them to clear it, only for the water division to unhook a hydrant and release pressure right in that spot, forming a new sheet of ice. So you win some, you lose some. But that's definitely a good question. And just to reemphasize to everybody, it is your responsibility to clear your sidewalk. And if I could offer a word of advice, get out and do it just as it finishes snowing. Otherwise, people are going to walk on it. They're going to tamp it down. It's going to get a lot harder. Those people who waited a few days to get out there, it's not happening now. So this is not just about your own comfort. It's not just about getting mail delivered to your house. It's also about making sure that people can get to their jobs. And I repeat this, people that live in this neighborhood, especially this neighborhood, are a lot of the times they're doctors or they're nurses that work at the hospital, and they have to get to work. So clearing your sidewalk is your civic duty to make sure that these people can get to their jobs and save lives. Any other questions?
I'll volunteer for the sidewalk cleaning.
All right, we have our first volunteer for sidewalk cleaning. Fantastic.
I've got a snow blower coming too, so Shoto will be nice.
Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, the sign up sheet is live. It's on our website under the Get Involved menu header there. If you hover over that or click it, you can click on FPSC Winter Help. You'll be taken to a Google Sheet. There's 2 tabs on there. One if you want to volunteer, another one if you need assistance or if you know of neighbors who need assistance. As Alderman Browning mentioned, it is the responsibility of the homeowner or landlord to remove that snow, but we know that not everyone is able to do that, so assistance is needed to those who are elderly or disabled. So if you'd like to sign up sheet is live. I can put your name in there if you'd like. And then we'll figure out the logistics, but I did want to get it up as soon as possible to start getting volunteers and a list of people who may need the help. Any other questions before we move on to Mr. Ron Coleman and other neighborhood updates? No? Awesome.
I love it when the police and the aldermen go before me and you just hit them with questions because it knocked off my first 3 agenda items. So thanks for your comments on the run, and we've been speaking with them and we'll keep doing that. Sidewalks, there is a penalty, but people have, like, depending on how you read the ordinance, they have 6 months to take care of it. So it doesn't, it's like, so really there is no penalty.
To drop off a bag of walnuts at your house at the front door, but I want to let you know there are 3 stamps in the bag as well, so make sure you get those out before you toss the bag.
Nice. What's the address again? You've probably also noticed we've had trouble with trash getting picked up, especially 4,500 blocks have gotten a lot of complaints up on Shoto, Gibson, Arco. I don't know if that has to do with the hills on some of those streets or the way the direction of the trucks have to go, but some neighborhoods are getting picked up fine, other blocks aren't. So we know that's a problem. The private haulers are having a problem too. Republic let us know that they are going to be picking up the overspilled trash when they're able to get to those containers. So you don't, if it makes you feel better, you can still call the Citizen Service Bureau, but we know there's a problem.
It seems like they're random ones. Like, to your point, they're like, they'll
Yeah.
pick up the ones right next to it, literally. But I saw one sit for like 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Like 5.
Especially the commercial ones, some of them require the driver to get out and roll the dumpster to a position where they can pick it up.
These were
And,
sitting, unfortunately,
oh,
but
they were all
yeah,
sitting?
but they just, but to your point, they'll randomly
Yeah,
skip certain ones for various reasons and it doesn't really make sense.
yeah. I'm not, I haven't driven with the drivers in the snow, so I'm not sure the reason, but did you already submit a service request? Okay.
It is what it is.
Okay. Also, just don't forget to keep turning in the lights, street lights that are burned out this time of year. The weather does do a number on them sometimes. And let's see. My office is trying to focus this month on just making sure you all know about the nuisance property, the ordinance for problem properties. Just know that if there's a property on your block that's got behavioral issues, whether it's loud parties or drug dealing or just, any kind of nuisance, even short-term rental problems. If we have 2 police calls, we can call in the owner to talk to us. And we have the monthly meetings with the police, the attorneys, and my office. We go through all the police calls in the neighborhood, and those that stand out, we'll call the owners in. So please call the police, call non-emergency, whatever you need to do, but we need a call log according to the ordinance. We need those calls logged before we can declare it a nuisance. So you don't have to put up with any issues that are going on. There are tools to deal with that, and I just hope that you can use those. So, any questions for me? Yes, sir.
Circling back to the trash, you brought up Republic. I've had a few neighbors talk to me about the gentleman, I think Republic has the contract for the Home to Go suites on Taylor
Okay.
Avenue. What time are they allowed to come and pick up the trash?
So 6 a.m. and
They're
adjacent.
at 4.
Okay, I need to know that.
Yeah.
So if they're adjacent to Zone A, Zone B residential, then they have to be after 6. Yeah,
Amigo Soleil who
Yeah.
have mentioned something to me, but yeah, they're there. I mean, I'm opening my facility at around that time and they're running their backup beepers and all that sort of stuff.
okay.
Yeah.
I'll let them know, or you feel free to call them as
Okay.
well. But there's an ordinance limiting that to 6 a.m. Yeah.
Is the Citizen Service Bureau, excuse me, going to convert off Twitter or have another option too? Or is it going to be, or is the city in the process of like converting?
There are multiple ways to contact the Citizen Service Bureau. There's through their website, which I find a little clunky. I think the best way to do it is honestly just to email them at csb@stlewis-mo.gov. They will, you just put what your problem in the header. You don't even need to write text to the email and they'll route it to the right area. There's also a phone number that you can reach out to them at. But I think the only social media that they're on right now is Twitter. And obviously that's not appealing to everyone.
It just seems cool. I just haven't responded the last couple of times. And I know I've read cities considering migration to options, but I'm just curious.
Twitter is a little, or X is a little awkward for CSB people. It comes into, a separate account they have to check, and then it's just not as efficient. And like Michael said, just the email, or ideally use the website, stlewis-mo.gov/CSB, and that will get you to all the drop downs. You can choose, what you need to do.
I've had fairly decent success with the online reporting.
Okay,
If you take a
good.
few photos and you put something in there, they're usually out there. And it's not a bad day, but
Yeah.
Right.
I really appreciate photos.
Yeah, definitely. And along those lines, what else was I going to say? Oh, we converted to automated system too. So you can call 24 hours and it will convert you have to talk to the machine, but the AI is getting better and we're kind of training it. So you can just call it in 24 hours, and then CSB staff or us, I try to go through every morning and see what's in the queue and we change the typos and make sure it makes sense. So feel free to call it in too. It's 622-4800. If you don't have it in your phone, please put it in there. 314-622-4800. All right. Thanks, Dan.
Man, Twitter was my favorite way to submit requests. I do that on the daily. But if it's easier for them to do some other way, I can change my habit.
Whatever's easy for you.
Cool. Only a few things left here. Wanted to call out that our monthly litter cleanups are now also alley cleanups, and we'll be starting those in March through October. They'll be the fourth Saturday of each month at 10 a.m. We'll meet at Manchester and Newstead. We'll figure out a way to divvy up the streetscapes or the alleys. And then we'll also provide the tools to do that. But alleys will be a little bit different, so we might need some bigger tools like wheelbarrows, depending on maybe some brooms, depending on the trash and debris. And then we have our last neighborhood tree pruning of the winter coming up. Cami and Co have been leading some tree pruning throughout the neighborhood. They've been working with forestry to make sure they're certified and able to do so. If you'd like to join them, the last time to do so will be Sunday, February 2nd, from 10 a.m. to 11:30. They meet at Manchester, Newstead, and pick out a different spot of the neighborhood to prune some trees. Just a reminder, yeah, you can sign up to be a volunteer or to help remove some ice and snow. But if you know anybody, your neighbor who might need help, I think it would be beneficial to add them to the list as well and let them know that they can get assistance. And with that, next up is our Tuesday meeting in February, February 18th at 6:45 p.m. If you guys have any ideas on who you'd like to hear from or topics you'd like to hear of, shoot them our way and we can try to find somebody to come and speak at the next meeting. But with that said, I'll give everyone about 10 minutes of their life back. But thanks for joining.
Stan.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Phil.
I sense this.
Yeah. I like this side better.
First I thought they were getting breakfast.